Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Make sure you find the Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe, and please rate and review the show. A reminder, we're streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel and airing live on Sportsnet 360 Monday to Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. I'm your host, Wim Liu. On the second half of this program, we'll have co-host and producer Alex Wong on to discuss all the great playoff basketball that is taking place in the league. But first, I'm joined by a friend of the program, CJ Miles of Strictly Hoops over at Yahoo. CJ, how you doing, man? All right, 1 second. He's dropped on the line. We will get him back in just a second. But yeah, I'm hoping to talk to CJ about a couple of things. Obviously, the coaching storyline is still going on. As I shared yesterday, this will be a lengthy process. Like we probably will see it take place over the course of a month. But I'm curious to see from former player who has played for, lots of great coaches, the whole process of sort of finding a coach, what it's like to work with a coach, what specifically you want to get out of that experience. And of course, obviously, we'll talk about the rest of the league as well. CJ is a great resource for all of that because, this is what's going on in terms of Raptors basketball wise. So we got CJ on the line. CJ, what's going on, man?
What's going on, man? So I got kicked off for a second. Something happened. I don't know. But
nah, it's all good. We would never do that to you. How you been, man? How's I was gonna say how's summer treating you, really, but you're retired, so I assume it's like
I'm in summertime all the time now.
that sounds pretty good, man. That sounds pretty
except
good.
we're having to get up, take the kids to school, but other than that,
Got you.
I can't complain about anything.
Got you. All right, well, we'll start here in Toronto, and then we'll move to the rest of the league. I guess this already happened for about 2 weeks now, but I wanted to hear your reaction to, the news that Nick Nurse was let go, and also that the Raptors are having this pretty extensive search for a new head coach.
It was, I don't know. Like I didn't even think about it until all the stuff started coming up in the media, and then the thing like some of his quotes came about him saying he needed to see where he was at and all that. Like it wasn't even a thought of mine, I guess, because I think you look at a team that's been pretty successful since he took over. Obviously there's been some ups and downs the last like year and a half and stuff like that. But I just mean you know that it doesn't stay in the high spot all the time. So I didn't think it would happen that soon. But
Right.
It seems mutual, I guess, because he had his quotes and they had theirs. I saw Masai's I saw Masai speak. So I mean, it doesn't seem like it was nasty. So I'm glad that's not the case. But
Right,
it definitely was surprising to me until it actually happened.
Yeah, no, that's fair, because I did think that, having seen him win a championship here and also win a Coach of the Year here, like, you would feel like that would buy you a little bit more permanency. But then again, I mean, this past season was just kind of uneven, right? And you do hear about stuff like, all right, behind the scenes, Masai wanted to change the culture, right? And, of course, the easiest way to do that without changing all the players is obviously to go for the coach. I mean, I want to ask you, because you were here the last time the Raptors, made a head coaching change from Dwayne, who won Coach of the Year that year. And then, ironically, he got let go, and Nick got moved over. What was the reaction in the team to that? And also, even just the idea that, like, after the Raptors searched for a coach, eventually they hired a guy that you guys were already familiar with Nick being an assistant here previously. What was that, experience like, seeing an assistant transition over to the head coaching position?
That was so I've seen it a couple times in my career. And I think it's hard on the assistant, on the coach, more than it is anything, because the road changes like drastically. It's not like you get moved a little bit up the chain, you get moved to the head of the snake.
Right.
And relationships change with players, because now, like, assistant coaches all down the line have different relationships with like a couple of players, because they work out with them here and they do this with this guy and they do this with this guy. Then the head coach has got to kind of get to a point where he's more even keel, because you don't want it to seem like you don't want to cause any rifts, and there's just different responsibilities and there's less time to do it that way. I think it's a tough spot to be in. But with Coach Case and Nick's situation was different, because I don't know if you wanted to change the entire culture. You just thought there was time for a new voice,
Right?
Because all the pieces were pretty much in place. They felt like obviously before the trade, but to be successful. They felt like the culture had been set, the guys had been set, and that's why you bring in a guy that's still part of that culture who's just gonna make some minor tweaks. When you want to reset a culture, you usually don't hire from within.
Right, right. No, that's good perspective. I was curious, like, what other times has this happened to you? Like you said, when the assistant got moved over.
Twice. So fun fact about me for like since like after like my 6th year,
Mm.
besides 1 year, I had a different coach every year, right?
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. Really?
Yeah, so
Damn.
Jerry Sloan.
Yeah, right.
So
of
after
course.
Jerry Sloan, the assistant coach that gets moved to the front seat is Ty Corbin.
Ty Corbin, right? Yep.
And then I go to Cleveland. I have Byron Scott. Then the next year I have Mike Brown.
Right.
And then the next year I have Vogel. And that's the only year I have a coach 2 years in a row. My 2 years in Indy, I have Vogel. The third year in Indy, Nate McMillan moves over. So that's twice I got assistant coach that moves over. And then I leave Indy and come to Toronto, and I have Case. And then the next year I have Nick. And then and then I get traded in that season and get bigger staff. And then I get traded to the Wizards, and I have
Scott Brooks.
Why am I drawing a blank? Yes.
Yeah.
Man. So like, it was a wild. I didn't even think about it till one day I was sitting down talking with some people, and it came up. I was like, "Oh, that's very true. That happened." But yeah, so but I saw it happen twice in my career.
Right. No, that's why. I mean, from the player's perspective, like when a new coach comes in, what's your approach? Like, do you sit down with him? Does he come to you and you guys sort of lay it all out, and you're like, "This is how I play. This is sort of what my expectations are." Like, walk us through that process, because I think for a lot of people, like we're just thinking about the head coaching position of it all, but obviously, the whole position is about relationships, right? And how coaches manage that relationship with the players.
The only one I would say that was particularly hard for me was Toronto, because there was not so much it was a coaching staff and a roster change.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, so now the role is different. There's a change, there's tweaking, there's all these different things. But the other times, like, like I said, it was a coach that I had spent the first 6 years with Ty Corbin before he was the head coach.
Right.
So we knew each other, and the system wasn't changing. Like I said, when you promote from within, everything's not changing super fast. So it wasn't it's just a different guy at the helms, and there's some little things.
Right.
Same with Nate in Indiana. We didn't change everything. We had pretty much the same core players, and it just was time for a new voice, they felt like.
Got you.
But I think the biggest thing is, you sit down, and they come to you. They sit down with everybody, I think, because they want to, establish a relationship from that viewpoint. So you want to give people a chance to just understand, what they think their roles might be, what's the new direction of the team, and things we want to try to do. And you want to do it one-on-one with some guys, because you want to make sure that they have a clear understanding, and you're not just throwing stuff at guys out of nowhere. Especially if it's a guy that was playing a certain role, and you decide, say there's a guy that's been playing the 2-3, and you decide, now we're a small ball team, so now you're going to play 4.
Right.
I don't want you to just show up on day one and I say you're at the power forward spot.
Right.
Even though that happened to me. But that's
I was going to say that. I was like, are you talking about yourself in Indiana? Because that's what happened. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, but there was conversation about it. It just wasn't supposed to be me at that time.
Right. Of course.
So it wasn't that crazy. But it anyway.
Yeah.
but yeah, you just try to make sure that you let guys know that there's going to be some changes, and things are going in a direction, so you can kind of get in a direction that's not the same, but it's not me trying to come at you in an abrasive manner, as if I just let you show up to camp and I just say this and this has got to go.
Right.
And that's the way. And you don't want to start off like that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like people don't really appreciate that enough, about sort of like how important it is to work with players. Like, very rarely would you have coaches nowadays come in and just be like, my way or the highway. Like, I don't think that exists anywhere in the league, maybe even in other leagues. But I was curious, because I've been hearing about the fallout, and obviously when a coach gets let go, or just like when a star player gets traded, you get to hear all this, like, oh, this happened, or this happened, or this happened, right? That's just, I guess, just the nature of the league. But you do hear about, like, okay, well, front office wanted Nick to use his bench more, or use the young guys a little bit more, which kind of goes hand in hand. And I remember we had this discussion when you were on the show previously during the season, about sort of how the Raptors can sustainably build a better bench, and sort of what's that approach towards player development. I mean, you were part of like the most memorable Raptors bench group here, right? Everyone hears bench mob, they know exactly what happened that year. Obviously, your role in that as well. Um, can you just take us through like sort of maybe some of the things that Dwayne Casey was able to put into place, or that coaching staff in that year in 2017, 2018 was able to put in place where you guys just were able to click right off the bat, versus maybe other situations where you were coming off the bench, but there wasn't that same level of camaraderie or success.
I think in Toronto, one of the things was they already had they were already trying to pump a high belief into those guys
Mm,
before I got there, right?
okay, okay.
So and I think those guys were doing the work and the system, the things that they wanted done. Those guys, they were trying to reward those guys for their work. Whether it would work out we didn't
Mm,
know that, but I think we got really tested early. Um, and I think that's the biggest thing that helped us is that we got tested early and they were able to see, okay, we can make these little tweaks here, this, that, and the third, and we can do certain things. And then there was just us grabbing the bull by the horn.
yeah.
Like there's a certain part of this that is on the player also. Now, if I keep giving you opportunities, granted there should probably be more sometimes in
Hmm.
situations like this, but if I keep giving them to you, you're gonna have to go out there and kind of not go by the book. You're
Right.
gonna have to go make a difference. You're gonna have to be uber aggressive and try to make many plays as you can because you're trying to turn 5 minutes into 9 and then 9 into 15 and 15 into 20. And that's essentially what happened with us. We started going in games and just deciding that we were going to make leads bigger or close a gap or get a lead or whatever it was, and then we get to ride the wave because we did the work.
Mm,
Now, you also always don't have star players that can let that happen either.
right. So Kyle
I'm
and
not
DeMar were
saying that
cool with that, right?
yeah, and I think the
Right.
guys in Toronto are too. They just had to play 40 minutes. Like that was just the way that
Yeah.
they were playing.
Right. Right.
But I think there are a lot of situations, and I've been in places that's the case sometimes too, where the bigger name guys don't care. They want their minutes and they want their shots and they want
Mm,
their numbers.
right.
And it's getting better around the league now, but it used to be way worse, I think, because now the league is played at such a pace that everybody's got a chance to average
That
dang near 18, 20 points a game now
right. No, I mean
if you play minutes.
that's a great point, right? Because I feel like one of the things that really stood out with the bench mob that year was just like you guys came in and you guys played a different style. You guys were faster.
Mm-hmm.
You guys, definitely got up and down the floor better. You guys were able to force, I feel like, way more turnovers. You guys more active than the starting
Mm-hmm.
group defensively, who played more conservatively, and the ball like just popped around because none of you guys were really like the featured guy, and it was like a very different style as compared to the starters. Whereas sometimes I watch different benches, or even this year with the Raptors, like sometimes the quote unquote bench is in, but really it's just another starter that's been left in is now become the featured guy. Like OG would be out there with the
Yeah.
bench, but it's just like OG's now the featured guy, and the bench is just sort of like waiting around. Like it's a very
Yeah.
different approach to that.
And that was the thing I think you can't help but look at the timing of us too. Like
Sure.
we were lucky, I guess, quote unquote, in that department, right? We had a unit that everybody kind of benefited the other guy. Like me
Mm,
being a shooter that liked to run around, I had two screeners with Yak and Pascal, mobile screeners,
right.
and two point guards on the floor.
Yeah.
Like I lived the dream life in that unit. And then at the same thing with me, the attention that I could cause by running off screens and the space I could create for pick and rolls for the 2 point guards or them just attacking in transition.
Hmm.
And the fact that Pascal and Yacht could still be mobile and run and they could do different things and we could switch on defense and we just happen to mesh really well. And like you said, we provided a totally different service than the front five did.
Yeah.
Like that's the biggest thing too. And I think we had an identity, and once we kind of like understood that, we ran with it.
Mm. Got you. Well, I mean, here's the thing though, because like I feel like after the championship, we were all like, "Oh, this is the standard now, right? We're in Toronto. We expect
Mhm.
championships. This is all that's good in the world." But now, after a couple of years later, and obviously they had a couple of down years. Obviously, this year's a down year. We're like, man, we're so nostalgic about what happened before the championship. Now we appreciate it a little bit more. It's actually even kind of funny, even reflecting on this moment now. But no, I mean, seriously though, I feel like whichever coach that comes in next, obviously there'll be a big emphasis on player development, big emphasis on part of that player development is, as you mentioned, the reward, right? The reward is minutes, right? And
Yeah.
you get those minutes to build your career, and hopefully whatever opportunity that comes, like the next coach will do that for the Raptors. You got any ideas as to sort of? I mean, first off, CJ, can you come back and coach? Can we just on
I
air
would.
pitch you
I
on this
mean,
idea? You know what I mean?
I don't. I don't know if they hire a guy off the street as a head coach that's never coached before, but
You want to
I
be an
would love
assistant?
to.
You know?
I would love to. I would love to come help my guys out and help the organization out. We love Toronto as a family, and I
Mm,
love the organization.
all right.
That would be a fantastic situation
The
if that
producers,
could
clip
happen,
this right now and send
especially
it to Bobby. All right, we have Bobby's number.
especially with my guys being back, with Yacht coming back, and my
Right,
if my
right.
guys get to stay there, like that would be
Hmm.
unbelievable. I would love to do it either way, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because I love the organization and what they stand for and the people that and the things they did for me.
Mm,
And basketball wise, I feel like they try to do things the right way, which
mm,
is, you know, a big thing in the league because you got some people that are just superstar heavy and they don't really try to look at it like we're talking about right now. We're balancing it out and
hmm.
developing young guys and looking for guys that they think can help character wise and bring along to help that team. Because that's the thing you look at too with that bench mob thing. These are not no offense to them at that moment, but nobody knew Fred would be who Fred is in the
Yeah,
league
yeah.
except us. Nobody knew Pascal would be who he was except us.
Mm,
Even Yacht turning into the serviceable big that he's turned into, he's exceeded the mark. The line the same. Like
hmm.
those guys, they and the minutes is what did that. The reward for their minutes. And I think at some point the coaches got to be a little bit more lenient on the other side because there's a curve that they got to go through. That
Right.
guys got to go through. Even guys that aren't as young that come to new teams, like
Yeah.
they got to go through a situation. They got to go through some things. So it's just about the patience that comes with it and having the balance of being able to understand that you can win and develop guys. It might mean you're not the best team in the league
Hmm. Hmm.
some nights because there's going to be nights you're going to have to give some guys some chances to play 25 minutes, but that's what, you look at the schedule, you look how you're playing, you check the temperament and you go from there.
No, that's fair. That's fair. All right, CJ, I want to move to the rest of the league as well, because
Okay.
obviously the playoffs are going on right now. I don't know about you, man,
Mhm.
but every night I feel bad. I'm just telling my partner, like, look, listen, we'll hang out like after after check and check are off TV at 1 a.m.
Now the
That's our
crazy thing
time,
is
man.
is my wife, she's a trooper. She's with it.
Okay,
So
all
like
right,
she's locked in. So like that's easy for us to
okay.
watch the games.
You're
Like
lucky, man.
during the season, she might watch more games than me because I'll rewatch them the next morning. Like some days
Right.
I'm just like I'm gonna do something else. But
Uh,
she's locked in.
all right. Well, that's great because obviously there's been so much great playoff basketball.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to start with just last night's games. So for me, coming into the playoffs, my prediction was I thought the Celtics were gonna, take that next step and actually win it all. I just thought their talent on paper, the roster is so good. They're in that right space too. They got some veterans, but they got young players who are also like battle tested. Like these guys are ready to go. And I feel like for me, I'm just kind of underwhelmed, not just with the game last night where they shouldn't have lost it to a Sixers team that didn't have Joel Embiid, but even in that the Hawks series. With all due respect to the Hawks, I never saw that urgency from the Celtics. To me, I'm watching them. It feels more like they're just rolling over the regular season rather than they're sort of elevating to another gear. I wanted to see what your thoughts were on Boston because right now they're only 4-3 so far when you look at the 2 rounds so far, and I don't think anyone would have expected that out of a team that were probably favored to win the championship.
Yeah, I mean, you just would like to see a different sense of urgency in some
Yeah,
moments,
right, right.
right?
Like you look at the Heat, for
Just from a
example. Like they're just
go
going, they're
yeah,
completely different, right? So
yeah. Jimmy Butler turns into Michael Jordan in the playoffs every year. It's crazy.
yo, it's nuts, man.
Yeah, it's really nuts. But I think there's just I don't really know. Maybe it's the success that they've had and they're already looking at the deep run they can make and they've done. Maybe
Mhm.
that's what it is. And they're kind of like ahead of themselves instead of being one game at a time. And they're because you got what the maybe arguably the best wing tandem in the league.
Yep.
Two guys that can win you games every night. Marcus Smart, who has grown into a tremendous floor leader, obviously been a defensive player of the year and the things he does on the floor, and all the veteran guys, Brogdon, and other guys that are on that team that know how to play their roles and do things. But it's just you watch the game and you see some turnovers here that you would think that they wouldn't do. You see they weren't great defensively,
Yeah.
which is what they've been as a team, as a unit. They've been a great team, defensive team. I think that's one thing. And then the big thing is no Joel Embiid. And that's a hard argument, because teams are totally different without their star players. So it's kind of harder
Right.
when you got a guy like James Harden who's been playing one way and all of a sudden he decides to have a flashback to Houston. And Tyrese Maxey's dangerous. And other guys get more opportunities that you've been preparing for all your schemes to go at Joel Embiid.
Right. I mean, the Sixers, they've had a winning record this season when Joel's been missing time. And I think obviously a lot of credit to the players, a lot of credit to even Doc to allow that to happen. But it's a very different style. They obviously they're able to spread the floor a lot better. They play a lot more zone, which I feel like they don't do as much with Joel in the middle. And I thought that kind of slowed down the Celtics to some degree at certain moments. But even just the way they're able to race down the floor as well, they're able to play faster. Like, I mean, it's not a given. However, having said all that, like, we agree the Celtics should have taken care of business last night, and I do feel like that sense of urgency probably does have to kick in at some point. Like, I don't know if it's like after you lose game one. Like, I don't think they're gonna panic or anything, but they got to get game two. They have
no reason to be in a panic, but they need to get game two. And the other thing is, you just don't want it. Like, the later we get in these playoffs, the harder it's gonna be to turn that on. Like, you know what I mean? And we can't, if let's say you make it through this series and get to the next and you try to do it again, that team is like, nah, we close to the championship. We smell blood.
Right. Yeah.
Like, this is different. Like, and there's a better, like, playoff basketball is already different. And obviously the team that you meet in the next round is going to be better than the last or playing better than the last at that time.
Right.
And you don't want to give anybody anything. You want to be beaten. You don't want to beat yourself in the playoffs.
Yeah. And I know for the Celtics perspective, like they talked about it after losing in the finals last year. Like, they felt like they were the better team. But the Warriors maybe.
I think a lot of us did.
Sure. Yeah. But I mean, I think the Warriors, like, took over that moment. Like, Steph took over that moment, especially when you think about game 4 when they were down 2-1 for the Warriors going into TD Garden. And a lot of Warriors weren't playing great, but Steph just kind of single-handedly kind of like really willed them forward. Kind of similar to game 7, to be honest, that we just saw over the weekend.
He keeps doing.
Man.
Incredible. Yeah, it's enough. I feel like every year we say he's different. Like, you know what I mean? Like, at some point we're gonna have to talk about him in the conversations of like greatest of, like, we can't just be saying greatest shooter. Like, it's got to be a different type.
I agree. Is it just because he's small? You know what I mean? Because, like, I guess maybe visually we're not like, all right, this guy is just like clearly dominant. Like, the way you would look at like LeBron
That's the word,
or Shaq
right?
or Giannis.
That's the word.
Right.
We think of dominance as size and strength and like. And this physicality type thing, and he's as dominant as those guys without being that.
Right.
I think we have to look at the impact of the game. And my favorite quote of anybody, JJ Redick said it. JJ Redick said he had the gravity of the sun, meaning anything he does and moves, everybody's on a high alert and watching, and he pulls everything to him.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like the arena moves when he's moving. And the thing that's crazy is that he might be one of the most well-conditioned players of all time, the pace that he plays at, right?
Right.
So he does everything with intent. So everybody's always on high alert. So he's got everybody shook all the time because he's in every action and he's back screening and running and relocating, driving. And now he's finishing at the basket. He's doing the mid-range, the long floaters, all the things. We can't just call him shooter anymore. I get it, because shooting was the sexy part, right? It was the appeal. Like, that was
for sure.
He was the first one to do that. He broke all the records with that, and I get it. But when you break down the game, even when we talk about Boston last year, there's so many tough finishes at the basket.
Yeah.
In those big games, there's so many times he's turning the corner high off the glass and all these floaters and getting knocked to the floor. And I think that's, like, if I score 50 and I make 7 threes, I don't know how many threes he made. There's still 30 more points for me to get.
Yeah. And he only got to the foul line 5 times. He only made 3.
This is what I'm saying.
There's a lot of twos and like scoop layups and the angles that he finishes off the glass, mid-range pull-ups, man.
It's crazy. And he passes the ball well.
Yeah.
With both hands.
That's the thing too. You're absolutely right, because I feel like, watching these playoffs, like, obviously what Steph's been doing, what Jokic has been doing in this series too, is just like guys were just like, man, they're so dangerous with or without the ball. And I feel like there's so many players in this league that are dangerous with the ball, right? I feel like obviously the Suns, like classic example, right? Devin Booker, he's been going crazy, right? He's been lethal in terms of the way whenever he's had touched the ball, he's looking to score, and most times he's going to score. And obviously KD is KD, but there's something about these players where even when they don't have the ball, how much they improve and make the team around them dangerous. Like even the game last night I'm watching against with the Nuggets, right? When they went up 2-0, like Jamal Murray was shooting terribly. He was like 4 of 19. He couldn't make a single three. Obviously he's been doing great this whole playoff series, but like other guys are able to step up. They're able to step up because Jokic is able to put them into those positions. In addition to the fact that, I mean, last night I feel like the Suns were just like, all right, let's let Jokic beat me. We'll play more one-on-one. It's like,
that was their plan.
That's not a good idea. That's sorry, man. Jokic is too dangerous for that.
But think about how crazy that is, right? It was like, we'd rather let you get 40 than, like, we think you're more dangerous not scoring the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we'd rather let you go shoot it and get the score. We'd rather that be the way. And they're trying to take away the 3-point shooting. I get it because of his playmaking, but you can't take away the 3-point shooting and then you not make threes yourself, though.
No, that's true. That's true.
Especially when it's a big part of your game. Like, they go, KD's 2 for 12. I think Devin's 4 for 8, but then everybody else is 0 for. So there's 6 for whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those other guys off the bench, like Torrey Craig and Damian Lee, those guys have been making threes. They're making corner threes and stuff off the doubles. They're blitzing the pick and roll. So somebody's open. And if you don't got guys making those shots, then that we don't have any reason not to double team Devin and Kevin and Chris Paul anymore. Hopefully he comes back.
Right.
And, you know, those guys lose confidence and they stop shooting the ball.
Yeah. I mean, you know, this is why I feel like depth in the regular season, like as much as obviously the playoffs is like a different level, and we always talk about like, are the playoffs real or not is the regular season real because based on what we see in the playoffs, but it's like that's the process you go through, right? Like you have to build up the confidence of certain players. They know their roles. Yeah. And like for the Suns, like, I mean, I didn't think they would win it this year just because even though the talent's there on paper, like you need more time to build up those roles, to find who's going to step up in some of these other spots, build out your rotation a little bit.
Still another guy, like a super explosive guy off the bench away, right?
Yeah.
I know they brought in Terrence Ross, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, I think there's still like another guy, like a playmaking explosive type guy, a guy you can let go get it himself a little bit, put him in high pick and rolls, and he can make the other guys get them shots and be a scorer.
Mm-hmm.
Like a guy that's almost a 6 man of the year candidate type guy. You know what I mean? Like that type of guy changes everything. But it goes back to what we're talking about with like young guys and developing your bench, right?
Sure.
If we got to lose 3 or 4 games during the season for those guys to get experience, for us to get to the finals, I'm fine with that.
Right. No,
it's
man.
Obviously placement and understanding, you know, understanding where we are in the year to do it. But if we got to do it to get some guys some more minutes and to grow some guys or get guys some extra minutes, even if it's just with the starters so they can get a good understanding of things that the starters are doing. So when I take the starters out, they can imitate those things, whatever it is.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, that's where, again, like, you know, there's certain players that obviously with Jokic and Steph, they have the luxury too of, you know, having only played with one team and a lot of permanency. So guys have experience playing with those guys. But at the same time, like when you're able to elevate the group as a team, like it just makes the whole thing so much more dangerous. So I'm just trying to appreciate some of these players a little bit more. I mean, it's not like Jokic is two-time MVP is not, you know, underappreciated or Steph's not underappreciated. Probably
not underappreciated. You're right. But they should be. I think they should be talked about as far as how hard it is to do what they've been doing.
That's fair.
Because we talk about the Boston series with Golden State last year. Like you said, like they understand the moment.
Yeah.
They understand that sense of urgency that needs to happen. They've been in positions this way. Like Boston's coming into this era. Those young guys, those 2 wings, they've been successful and they're getting there and they're still climbing. These guys have been from the bottom to the very top of this thing multiple times in a row, down in series, up in series and lost it. Like they've done everything that you could do. And that's why I think people take them as being arrogant sometimes because they don't seem upset after losses or things like that. They're smiling. They're like, bro, I'm not worried about this.
Yeah.
I've done this already.
Yeah.
No, and there's nothing I can do until the next jump ball.
Yeah. No, I enjoyed watching that moment in Game 7 where I think Steph had just missed 2 free throws, and the next time he's at the foul line, this guy's just smiling. Like he's just like a full-on grin. and he makes both free throws, and then obviously he takes over the game, and then at one point he yells at the crowd like, "You're not ready for this," you know.
Yeah.
And it's like,
And he tells him to light the beam, which was crazy. Whew.
yeah, using the other
That's
team's
wild.
slogan
Yeah.
against them, man. No, honestly, like that I'm obviously like trash talking has been such a big focus of this year's
Yeah.
playoffs. You know, between what Dylan's doing and also sort of other places, but you know, it's just I don't know. There's something about like when you trash talk after you win, like after Jimmy Butler was talking to the Milwaukee fans after Game 5, being like, "Oh, it's awful silent in here," and he's cupping
No,
his ear and
but
all that kind
Jimmy
of
was
stuff.
talking trash when they were down.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a clip of him talking trash when they were losing still in the game.
And he was talking to Drew Holiday
Oh,
too, man. Which
yeah,
of all,
talking to maybe the best guard defender in the league, right?
yeah,
So like
man.
besides himself.
Yes,
Um,
you're right. Actually, we never really
but like
considered the other aspect.
but even back to the Steph thing, like think about how sick it is to be at the free throw line smiling in game 7 after I just missed 2. Like,
Exactly.
I'm excited for this
Yeah,
because it's something new. Like
yeah.
I got challenged. Like, you know what I mean? He's excited to come back to this because when was the last time we saw him miss 2 free throws in a row?
Exactly.
I don't think I ever saw it in person. I'm sure
Yeah.
it's happened before. I don't think I ever saw it watching the game
Right.
or playing against him. So like in that moment, he's like, "Oh man, this is crazy!" Like it's making him excited.
Mm.
How do you play it? What do you do with a guy like that?
No, exactly, man. All right. Well, CJ, I appreciate you. All right, we've run out of time, but you know, always appreciate
Yeah,
your insight on the league.
yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
We'll send that CV, we'll send that clip over to Bobby and Masai next time we run into him.
Yeah,
You
go
know,
ahead and do that, man.
maybe I'll just
I
slip it
got my
in.
passport ready,
Oh, I'm sure, man. I'm sure. But
and
yeah.
I got a dual citizen in my family, so you know.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
get her,
So
get her, get her, get her in touch with her roots some more.
there we go. Yeah, we can learn about kilometers, man. CJ kilometers all over. All right, CJ, I appreciate you. All right, take care.
Yeah, man. Appreciate y'all.
Okay, that's a good spot for us to take a break. I've been your host, Will, and you've been listening to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. When we come back, I know Alex Wong is itching to talk about the latest involving Dylan Brooks. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. I'm your host, Wayne Liu. I'm joined by producer and co-host Alex Wong for the segment number 2, segment number 1. Thank you to CJ Miles for hopping on. Alex, you in the back, you did come in during the break and suggest that we need to make one firm correction to what I said in the first half.
Yeah, I don't like when you lie on air and brag about the connections that you have in the city that you don't. I know off air you like to brag that you're a made man all the time and all this stuff.
That's the honor.
So when you offered, first of all, you offered CJ Miles a coaching position, which I thought was a little bit out of line.
I mean,
you got no pull in the org. Come on now.
Okay, all right, fair.
But the other thing, the bigger issue is, you were like, oh, CJ, we're gonna clip this and send it to Bobby because we have his number. We have met Bobby on several occasions at social events.
We have. Yeah.
We don't have his number. We still don't have his number.
We legit have to secure
We'd
his
have to
number.
ask like Trevor from Super Fresh or like Craig from Patois or something.
I feel like
they
that's
have
doable,
his number.
Man.
It's not a thing. It's not.
Yeah.
No.
So we don't have his number. I just want to confirm that.
All
You were
right.
capping.
I thought I was too excited in the moment.
You're a
What
big
can I
cap.
say? I'm sorry.
Big
I'm sorry,
cap.
CJ. We can get to know people who get to know
Yeah.
him. That's as far as we can.
The other thing you
Look at his
mentioned.
assistant.
The other thing you mentioned during the break.
Yeah. What else?
We should just leave our mics on during the break.
No.
You think
we
that'd be
shouldn't.
good or bad for our careers?
The
other thing you mentioned during the break is we talk about Dylan Brooks and Draymond Green on this show a lot.
Yes, we
Are-
are.
is
and we're
that-
going to do it here today as well.
Yeah,
So,
unfortunately.
this is a teaser. This is a teaser.
Unfortunately. So The Athletic, Shams at The Athletic reported today that the Memphis Grizzlies have informed pending unrestricted free agent Dylan Brooks that he will not be brought back, quote, under any circumstances.
Right.
So he was told this during the exit meetings.
Got
with
you.
team officials, and the two sides decided that it's time to have a fresh start. So very definitive.
That's what I do. I talk.
Coming from the Grizzlies.
First off,
I think you felt like this was a little bit too harsh.
Okay. Obviously, the situation wasn't ideal, right?
Mhm.
We had multiple moments this year where he was suspended just based on text alone,
Yeah.
right? Obviously,
Kicked a photographer in Miami.
he pushed him.
Pushed
he
him.
pushed the photographer.
Okay, my
in
bad.
Miami. Quote unquote,
Allegedly,
broke the rules last year in Golden State.
Yeah.
Also had that game where he really shot them out of the game in Golden State.
Yeah, had one this year as well.
I had one this year as well. The LeBron thing. Like I totally understand why the two sides will head for an exit, right?
Mhm.
There's no doubt about why that would be the case. But like the Grizzlies really just went the extra step to be like, hey, Shams, put the word out there that he's not coming back under any circumstances. People have left organizations. Players have left organizations. This was a free agency year. He could have just walked without them re-signing him, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they chose to put that out there. And they put it out there not through the local reporter. They put it out through the national reporter, one of literally the top two, and was like, put the word out there.
Top two.
That he not back up. He legit not back up, right?
Yeah.
Like so I mean,
I think
I get it. Like I totally understand moving on from Dylan. We talk about this topic all the time.
All the
we
time.
understand that they, we legit talk about Dylan Brooks more than we talk about most Raptors players. If we're gonna be honest, who has gotten more airtime, Dylan Brooks or Ron Harper Jr. But like
Jeff Down got a week.
Jeff Down legit got
Jeff
a
Down
week.
got a
So,
week.
but Dylan is getting close up there. But
Yeah.
like they took the extra step. So
I think this is the start of the Grizzlies trying to self-correct their organization a little bit.
they said
And
under any circumstance.
and it's
They're
a-
like,
listen.
if we have to have 14 players on the roster, we'll do it.
I think the Grizzlies have to look at themselves like overall as an organization too, in the same way that the Raptors talk
Sure,
about like
yeah.
changing the culture
Yeah, absolutely.
and stuff like that. It's like it's good when you want to empower your young players and your roster, and then let them play this like exciting brand of basketball, like have these personalities that really connect with the city. But you also see how the results have fallen short like the last couple of years, right? And you've seen
it's just they've had great regular seasons and playoff runs have not been as good. But
Yeah.
that's normal. That happens,
but I think
especially for young teams.
But I think the extracurriculars, like the trash talking, and like Dylan Brooks
Yeah.
is at the head of that, right?
Yeah.
Like I think there is some growing up to do, and I do think
Absolutely,
part of it, Dylan made it really easy for himself to be the scapegoat after this playoff exit. Like I don't think anybody has ever made it as easy
no,
to be a scapegoat.
yeah. No.
Like this was literally scapegoat versus the goat,
Mm.
and
But-
and I think the Grizzlies too, though the organization, they have to take some responsibility for this too. Just like you allow your players to act a certain way. You allow the culture to be a certain way, and now I think they feel like it's gone too far,
right.
and now it's them trying to rein it back. Because like
No, that's fair. Again, I totally understand moving on. It's just
I understand it, but this
He's
does
like-
seem very like extreme, right? Like this is
I'm just saying players have like thousands of players have left
Yeah.
their teams under free agency
Yeah.
circumstances. This is the one time I remember them
No.
being like, he's not back under any
yeah,
circumstances.
no, but this is like the parent, like, you know, letting their kids run wild, and now they have to overcompensate a little bit on the other
also,
side.
wasn't Dylan their longest tenured player too?
Yeah,
I mean, I suppose like it wasn't like this is like some like the Warriors dynasty breaking up. or
Sure.
anything, but like
yeah,
yeah.
but you know,
I mean,
I think Dylan Brooks will find a home.
here's the thing: Dylan is actually a very very good defender.
Yes.
He's not good enough to like slow down LeBron.
Mhm.
That's obviously, you know,
Yeah.
if we're gonna judge that, like nobody in the league was ever a good defender at that point then, other than JJ Barea. But like
I mean, the
like-
Raptors spent how many years trying to find a guy to stop LeBron?
exactly right. So I think he defensively he definitely has enough of a talent to get into the, you know, another position.
Mhm.
You know, he was a big starting player for a winning program. Like he
Mhm.
will latch on somewhere else, but. I mean, I also think about the reputations and things like that, right? I remember where Gary was on the show last weekend. It was an excellent episode, and he talked about, you know, how your reputation goes with you in different places as well. And I do feel like, you know, unfortunately, like this will be the reputation around Dylan. And I think front office will sort of think twice about signing him, even though he's good enough of a player to be part of winning programs, just based on his defense. Offensively, obviously, he needs to shoot less and be more efficient. There's no doubt about that, but. Like defensively, I think he's actually worth the trouble, but I think all the extra stuff makes it difficult to sign him. And so, I don't know. It's got to be really humbling, man. Not only did you crash out of the playoffs as a number 2 seed, but you literally poked LeBron. You lost it. LeBron dissed you with like a 2004 Kingdom Come bar.
Once again, from the worst Jay-Z album.
Right, got you.
Yeah.
I honestly would have preferred a Coldplay Kingdom Come bar, and. You know, now your whole franchise has thrown you out on the street. Like that's, man.
No, it's tough. It is tough.
And ultimately, what did he do? All he said was, "LeBron is old. I poke bears." It's actually just a pretty hilarious quote, all things considered.
No, I think just like,
man, I feel bad for him. Actually, I genuinely do.
and I think there were some comments made by the players like during the series too. I think Desmond Bane made some comments about like just like some of the defensive shortcomings from Dylan during the series. Like if you were reading between the lines. And I think this is a locker room thing, right? Can you bring this guy back
No, it's again
after
it's,
all of this?
It's totally fair. Totally
And-
fair to move on.
And I think the other thing, like Dylan's gonna find a home, but like with anything in the NBA, you always have to measure a player's skill versus whether he's worth the distraction.
No, that's fair. You're right.
And in this case, it's Dylan Brooks, right?
Yeah.
If you talk about if Dame Lillard was saying all this stuff, calling LeBron old and all this,
right.
and he got embarrassed and they lost by 40 in game 6, you just move on.
You're just
You
like,
bring
all right,
Dame
well,
back.
Yeah. Anyway, Dame. Well, let's try again.
Right?
Let's
Like-
get you another shooting guard who
This
doesn't play
is-
defense this year.
No, this is just how the NBA is, right? Is the guy worth the distraction?
Of course.
And
That's all of life.
and
really.
and in this case,
Yeah.
not worth the distraction.
Mm.
Crossing that one off.
All right. Yeah, I was gonna say, why don't you have a laptop today?
Yeah, I'm
Alex?
going analog today.
That really has sheets of paper. All right. What do you
Um,
have next, man? An acetate? This guy's gonna do projections.
Should we talk Draymond Green or
Find
should we
X.
talk James Harden? You pick.
My favorite topic, Dre Pod.
So Draymond Green.
Any new pods recently?
No, but it did
Wow,
remind.
he can't
Actually,
he can't be daily like us, huh?
actually, this Dylan
It's
thing.
tough. He's not ready for this.
Okay, we're not-
ready for this podcast grind.
Yeah,
You know what? I poke bears when it comes to
I don't res-
Draymond Green's podcast.
I don't respect any podcaster until they drop 40 episodes in 1 month. Speaking of Dylan Draymond, though, I mean, they had their little back and forth earlier this year too. and it actually does
That was not
remind me-
little. That was huge.
Draymond, it reminds me now. Draymond said the dynasty doesn't start with you; it starts after you.
Yeah.
And that's what he said to Dylan.
He also
so.
said like there's certain players on your team who don't even like you.
"Yeah,
Which this
that's very cutting." Yeah,
man.
yeah.
Which, by the way, does think like if Draymond was on like a 40-win team,
Sure.
he would have been cut a long time ago, even despite the fact that he's genuinely such a good player.
Draymond, I'm waiting for the series when the Warriors finally lose, and it might not happen this postseason when he actually has to do the pods after they lose because he's been
Does he
pure
not? This
pure
guy
winning.
he doesn't understand. Draymond, from podcaster to podcaster,
Yeah.
the rack pods are better when they lose. I need to hear you give the third star
Yeah.
to Doc Rivers.
So Warriors are taking on the Lakers tonight.
Yep.
In a series that's gonna break every single television rating for a second round series.
I
And
can't wait, man.
Mark
I will
Spears-
wait though. I'll be a hoop.
yeah, Mark Spears wrote an article about just Draymond and LeBron's evolving friendship because we've talked about the punch,
Gotcha.
them becoming together at the Clutch agency
Uh-huh.
and becoming more friendly. And he reported that earlier this year when LeBron was set to become the NBA's all-time leading scorer in that game against the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Warriors were on the road, and Draymond actually asked the Warriors for permission to miss some of their road trip to go watch LeBron in person. And head coach Steve Kerr decided, quote, it was best for Green to be with the team the night before a game in Portland, Oregon, instead of going to LA to see LeBron.
That's not even a long flight, man.
Yeah.
That's honestly hating, man. That's like a 2-hour flight.
I think that's true friendship, though. Is that true friendship for Draymond to want to be in person?
I mean,
to witness that history.
It's funny just because they were obviously on the opposite sides of this, right? Like, and you saw like, you remember when Draymond like really fouled LeBron super hard, and I think in Game 7 in 2016. You remember that?
This was when he went for the dunk.
LeBron went for this like ridiculous dunk.
Yeah, this was at the very end of the game.
Yeah, it would have been like one of the greatest dunks of all time. Right?
Yeah.
Like he really went full.
Everything. We weren't even sure if LeBron would have been able to go to the free throw line to shoot free throws because his wrist was hurting. I think.
Right, and Draymond like did what he needed to do in that scenario, which is hard foul him.
Yeah.
So I was completely agreeing with the play, but like to go from that to this level where
we are gambu, aren't we?
They're literally gambu. Like it's actually. It's almost adorable, but it is kind of funny though.
Would you have allowed Draymond if you were Steve Kerr to make this trip and then fly back to Portland?
I mean,
they were 4-33 on the road. Yeah.
Here's I think the difference was, like for example, the Heat also had an up and down season, right? But when Pau Gasol got his jersey retired, the Heat allowed Jimmy Butler to hop on a private jet across the country. Right, from Miami to LA, so that he could see his former teammate, which I think a lot of people forgot about how Pau Gasol and Jimmy were teammates with the Bulls.
I definitely forgot about that too.
So that he could surprise him and then fly back the next day.
Yeah.
Like Portland to LA is not that long of a flight. It's like 2 hours at most.
So you're saying you would have allowed it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm kind of with you on that.
Especially because we won 4 rings together. Like I get it. Like our season's not great.
By the way, I heard Spo. So like the Heat and the Knicks are playing tonight. We'll have James Herbert tomorrow to chat with us about it. And we're finally going to have another draft. I don't think we've had a draft this season.
Right.
Actually. So
We've
I'm
just been so focused on the head coaching search.
Been so focused. Spo yesterday was doing an interview and was like,
it's definitely a no for
people
me,
made
dog. Boys
too
is
big
just
of a
not.
deal out of how we struggled in the regular season. He's like, there's beauty in that struggle. And I need to put, you know what?
Man.
Heat culture keeps getting away with it, and it's so upsetting to me because how can you have a terrible regular season and for your head coach to be like, yo, there's beauty. There's beauty in being like 44-38. There's beauty in losing.
Well, that's what the Heat are most years.
You cannot take an underperforming season and reframe it as that just because you made a playoff run. That actually really upset me. And I tried not to bring it on air because it's Asian Heritage Month and shouts to Spo. Happy Asian Heritage Month, by the way. Yeah.
This is appropriate.
Yeah.
We really say this for the last 5 minutes.
But he can't get away with this. Like how you cannot reframe your regular season and say that there's beauty in the struggle.
I mean,
no. Was there beauty in the Raptors struggle this season?
Here's the thing. You can say whatever you want when you win, man. That's the thing. You can reinvent everything. You can find purpose, but only
that
after
made me roll my eyes,
you've done some winning.
That made me roll my eyes. He's like, you guys criticized us way too hard when we were losing. It's like, no.
That's the job of a coach, though. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying the job of a coach is to gaslight the franchise.
Yes, I'm not trying to get you to be anti-Asian or anything right now. It's fine.
No, I mean, despite all the press conferences that I've been in this year, the job of the coach is not to gaslight the franchise. But like, part of it is to like set the narrative, right, and just sort of get people thinking in a positive way.
Sure.
And it's like, yo, when the regular season is done, like, it really doesn't have any more relation to the actual season.
You know what? Next season, when the Raps are 5 games under 500,
you want me
February,
to say?
I'm gonna be like, there's beauty in this struggle.
There's beauty in the Raptors shooting 9 of 36.
Yeah, there's beauty in allowing the Sixers to shoot 77%. In the first half.
No, there was no beauty in that one. Unfortunately, there was no beauty in those 2 games in Boston. Which, by the way, I feel like I want to check in with you because
What's up?
we have only 2 more minutes.
Mentally, personally,
we're not gonna get on that topic. Have you forgiven the Raptors for this season yet?
Yeah, I already forgot about them.
Okay, so you've already forgotten, right?
Oh, yeah.
You're ready to move on. You're ready to see what the front office is going to do.
Yeah, I moved on.
Because I think for me, I'm watching a lot of the the online discourse and sort of seeing like what fans are saying about the team. Like people are still just so like
but you have to
mad at the specific moment.
This is fandom though, right? This is fandom.
Yeah,
like you're a diehard Raptors fan.
That's why I just wanted to check in on you. That's all. I'm not saying what you should do or what you shouldn't do. I was just like,
me
are you
personally,
still mad?
No, I have a very detached approach to it.
I felt like after I wrote my 210 things, and I was like, okay, this is. I've thought about this topic deeply and like each individual player. these are my thoughts. Afterwards, I was like, all right, I'm just ready to see what happens in the summertime. Like I've let go of the frustration of, seeing how the season ended, and I even resisted the question of asking CJ about Dr. DeRozan because he's come across Dr. many times.
Yeah, I will say it is tough that they ended the season on the most embarrassing loss.
It's tough, and it was embarrassing, but I'm just choosing to like not just let it go in terms of forgetting about it, but like moving on because again, there's nothing you can change about it.
Yeah, time to move on. There's
what can you do in the off season?
Saw the Raptors Twitter account put out like asking for favorite moments from the season, and like I tried to think about it. And I was just like, this was not a season for any moments.
Wait, hold on. What were your favorite season moments on the
Neo
season?
at the Nick Nurse Foundation event, Tier 0 photo shoot, OG and Masai from Media Day.
So nothing on the court, huh?
Assorted media meals at the arena.
Wow.
Yeah, so those were good. One more minute.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say. Mine? Oh yeah. What are yours? I just want to say that the Suns are cooked. The Phoenix Suns are officially cooked. They're done. They're done, man. They're done. Denver's a great team. I know you guys talked about it in the first half.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Phoenix has 2 players. You can't win with 2 players.
But when those 2 players are Devin Booker and Kevin Durant.
Okay, but you're down 0-2 right now. They're playing 44 minutes a game.
Everyone loses on the road in Denver.
Okay,
you know that.
This is not a Warriors coming back from 2-0 against the Kings. Have you seen anything in these 2 games from the Suns that makes you say, okay, they've got all these adjustments that they're going to be able to make? Yeah. Josh Okogie's still going to have to shoot that wide open corner.
No, he's not. I want KD and Devin Booker to shoot over every double team.
But this is already what they're doing. This is already what they're doing.
Do it even more. No, honestly, I do think they'll have a better energy coming back to their crowd.
It's a 5-game series. If the Nuggets don't win this in 5, I'm going to be really
Chris Paul's injury does really concern me here.
Sure.
He's already been rolled out, I think, for game 3.
Yeah.
That's quick.
The Suns are not a championship contender.
No,
not this season.
I agree. I don't think they'll beat the Nuggets, but I think they should at least win 2 games.
They're lucky Kawhi had to be shut down.
At least go 6 games, man.
No, this is going 5, maybe a sweep.
All right.
So
I'm excited to see that series, but it's low-key the NBA TV series of the second round.
Yeah, weirdly.
Yeah.
It's got the MVP, man. The announcement is coming tonight.
I know. You know it's going to go to Joel Embiid. He cried enough for it this year. Anyway, that does it for us today. I've been your host, Will Lou, and you've been listening to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Make sure you find The Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe, and please rate and review the show. A reminder, we're streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel and airing live on Sportsnet 360, Monday to Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. Thanks once again to CJ Miles. Thanks to producer and co-host Alex Wong. Thanks to our board producer, Derek Brandell and Jennifer Rollin for helping in the YouTube stream. It's time to talk about the Maple Leafs again.
Feels good, man.